The truth is our ability to integrate, to be integrated men, is integrating our dark and our light, our happy and our sad, our future and our past, our material and our spiritual. It's being able to integrate all of these things together. So an integrated man can acknowledge the reality of challenging or difficult situations and embrace the gifts and blessings that surround him at the same time. Life can be difficult and challenging, and we can still feel thankful and blessed at the same time. Welcome, everybody. I am at a Starbucks on Interstate 90, just east of North Bend, Washington. I'm out camping, got my Starbucks coffee. I'm back in a little corner. I think this will be the first Integration Nation lesson I've done remotely from a Starbucks. So now lesson 14, aspiration 14, is I aspire to live with thankfulness and gratitude for the abundance that surrounds me. But before we talk about abundance, before we talk about gratitude, before we talk about thankfulness, let's talk about challenging and difficult times. Now, I love reading your posts on the timeline. And it seems like the posts on the timeline, the Integration Nation timeline, most often reflect places where guys are stuck in pain, going through difficult times. Often things like, the difficulty of struggle in a relationship, maybe the end of a relationship. I've seen guys post about issues about being estranged from their children, either young children because they're going through a divorce, or maybe adult children. And just, a lot of guys are posting their pain points there, the things they're struggling with, the things that are difficult. And I know that most men find No More Mr. Nice Guy, or find this community, or find me when they're going through hard times. Now, in the midst of these hard times, it's difficult to see how things will ever change or what good's going to come out of them. We lose sleep, we worry, we eat too much, or we stop eating, we procrastinate. Maybe we turn to our addictions. Maybe we isolate. That's so common with men. Or we live in the echo chamber of our own ruminating brains. And it's hard to believe when we're struggling. It's hard to believe that this too will pass. We tend to forget that we've handled challenging times before. We lose hope. The last thing we feel is gratitude, thankfulness, abundance, right? Those things just aren't on our mind. I mean, we might even ask, well, how do you feel grateful when going through difficult times? And I know whenever I teach lessons about gratitude, that's almost always the question that I get asked. I can feel grateful when everything's good, but how do I feel grateful when going through difficult times? And my answer to that is when thankfulness, abundance, thinking, and gratitude are the most essential. And that is the time that we actually cultivate these traits. We don't tend to cultivate them, believe it or not, when everything's good. We don't really reflect much on how grateful and thankful we are when things are good. We just try not to fuck that up. But it's exactly when we're going through difficult times that we most need to develop the practice of gratitude, not wait until the hard times pass to feel grateful. So we're going to talk about gratitude practice, right? And with an emphasis on the word practice. Now, I began my first ever gratitude practice looking back now 22 years ago. I was separated from my second wife, who I was married to when I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy. We're about to go through a divorce. Is one of the most challenging times of my life. My stepson was dealing with addictions and was about to go into drug and alcohol treatment. Just the hassles of challenges and fears of going through a divorce with a very difficult woman. There's a reason why we were separated and getting divorced, and it did not get easier during the divorce. It's the first time in my adult life I'd ever really lived alone. I was, No More Mr. Nice Guy was just about to be published in the next few months. It was about to come out. I had a lot on my plate getting prepared for that. It was a difficult time. And I was also going to some 12-step groups, mainly using them as my men's group. It'd be all guys. And I was just using that to get my sanity while breaking out of a trauma bonded relationship. And it was during that time I started practicing gratitude. Because in 12 steps, they talk about having an attitude of gratitude. I got a friend that I'd met in 12 steps and said, let's start doing a gratitude practice every day. A few minutes every night before we get in bed, a few minutes in the morning when we wake up. Let's check in with each other every day. And to my surprise, within just a few days, 2, 3, 4, 5 days at the most, I began feeling good, right? It was a difficult time of life. It was one of the most difficult times of my life that I can remember. And I felt good. And I often tell the story, but then about 5 days in, both me and my partner that I was doing the gratitude practice both forgot to do our gratitude practice for a few days till one of us go, wait a minute, we haven't checked in. It was feeling good, but we actually forgot to keep doing the gratitude practice. So that's where I learned that it truly is a practice. It's something we have to make an important part of our life, no matter what we're going through. Since that time, 22 years ago, I lost my father, my older sister, and my brother. They all died within 11 months of each other. Since that time, I've had severe financial stresses, filed for bankruptcy after that divorce. I became estranged from my 2 stepchildren from my second marriage due to their out of control addictions. I watched my mother almost die of a stroke about 4 years ago. I almost died twice in the last 20 something years. All of these events have been painful and challenging, but throughout them all, even when I was dying and didn't know what was killing me about 7 years ago, I practiced gratitude and welcomed whatever came. And that practice is how I survived. Now, again, it's so easy to forget to do the things that work. I mean, probably all of us have had some experience doing some gratitude and felt how good it felt. But then when things get difficult, we forget. Even in good times, like I said, we forget. Now, I'm out camping this week. I live to go camping. I've been going camping since I was a kid with my family. I took my kids camping. I'm camping in a campground where I still remember pictures of me, 4 or 5 years old, standing in the creek by the waterfall. That waterfall's still there. I hiked up to it yesterday. Took pictures again, standing by the waterfall, some 60 something years later since I first went there, since I took my own kids there, 30 something years ago. So I'm out camping. I've got a beautiful RV that I bought about 3 years ago. I'm with my wife. I enjoy camping so much. Through the winter months, even though I live in a beautiful winter place, I look forward to the summer to get to go camping. So, but I noticed myself this week feeling just as stressed and distracted as if I was at home dealing with day-to-day demands. I'm sitting out in this recliner chair. There's a fire in front of me. My RV's parked right here. My wife's nearby. We got good food, good coffee, just, everything to enjoy time. And I was stressed. I was anxious. I wasn't having a good time. I wasn't enjoying it. And I love camping, but I wasn't present or in the moment or grateful. And it dawned on me, oh, here I am. I've had this camping trip planned for months because you have to reserve the campground 6 months in advance. So 6 months ago to the day, I booked this campground. So I've been looking forward to it for 6 months. And, I was just stressed and anxious and not in the moment. So I brought myself back to my gratitude practice. I practiced breathing, feeling grateful for the chair I was sitting in, the trees around me, the sounds of being out in the woods, the little chipmunks, the fire pit with the fire, my RV parked over here, my other car parked next to it, my wife nearby. And I just kept breathing in and just thinking of things that I feel grateful for in life. And none of my day-to-day stresses or demands went away, right? Nothing in the reality of my life changed, but I felt less stressed, more blessed, and more in the moment. And since that time, we've been up hiking to the waterfall. My wife and I have done cold plunges in the snow melt fed rivers. every single day, even when one or the other didn't really want to get in the river. We did, and just, enjoyed that good feeling of when you get out of that cold river. So what I want to talk with you about is about integration. We are integration nation. We aspire to be integrated men. So what is integration? Integration is the ability to hold two or more seemingly contradictory or opposing views or feelings or realities at the same time. I mean, can you be angry and content at the same time? Can you be sad and happy at the same time? Yeah, if we're integrated, we can. As a friend once told me, he said, Robert, you can be a dick, but you're not a dick. I was going through some pain because I'd done some things that hurt some people I loved. And he says, when you can integrate those things together, you'll be okay. So the truth is, our ability to integrate, to be integrated men, is integrating our dark and our light, our happy and our sad, our future and our past, our material and our spiritual. It's being able to integrate all of these things together. So an integrated man can acknowledge the reality of challenging or difficult situations and embrace the gifts and blessing that surround him at the same time. Life can be difficult and challenging, and we can still feel thankful and blessed at the same time. I mentioned the cold plunging. Go back to the cold plunging that I did in the river. I'm up in the Cascade Mountains, the snow's melting, coming down that waterfall, Franklin Falls, down into Denny Creek where we're camping. And my wife, we've had this tradition for a few years since we've been coming here. We go do the cold plunge. I set the timer on my watch. My wife is like an Iron Man, Iron Woman. She hates getting in there. And when she's in there, she goes, one more minute, one more minute. She outdoes me every time. Now, the reality was the water's freezing cold. It seemed colder this year than any time I've ever remembered it. It's always cold. And I got to thinking, nobody ever gets in a cold plunge, right? Whether it's in an ocean, a river, cutting the ice away in a lake and getting in, or in a cold plunge tub in their backyard. Nobody ever gets in and focuses on how cold it is or how long they have to stay until they get out and actually survives that, right? You can't do that. You have to bring your focus elsewhere. Usually, if you follow Wim Hof method, you bring it to your breath. I started breathing deep Wim Hof breaths before I got in the river. Continued once I'm in the water. You have to bring your focus to the benefits that you are going to receive of the fat burning, of the cell rejuvenation, of the DNA repair, of the dopamine hit, the reduction of cortisol. I mean, I know all those things happen when I'm in the cold plunge. I also looked around, the mountains around me, the trees, the logs that the water had, brought downstream. I had to remind myself, I've done this before. I've been in for more than 6 minutes at a time. And so all of these things allowed me to be in that bone chilling cold water. Now, the water didn't get any warmer, right? I chose to be in that cold water, but I was able to stay in it. Yesterday, got in, stayed in it 3 minutes. 2 previous days, I had to do a minute, get out, and then build up to 2 or 3. Yesterday, I got in for 3 minutes, and it was the easiest day of them all, even though I stayed the longest, because I just had gotten better. And it takes practice of integrating. This is fucking cold, and I can handle it through my breath, through where I put my focus. So life can be overwhelming and difficult, just like that cold river. And we can choose where we put our attention, just like we do during a cold plunge. And a daily gratitude practice is the most powerful way I know how to do that. So it's exactly when life is the most difficult and challenging that we most need to practice mindfulness, gratitude, and thankfulness. You guys maybe heard me tell this little parable that I read one time. I guess it's true. I don't know. The story is the Buddha was out with some of his priests out in the woods, and I guess they were meditating or practicing, and a farmer came along, and he was all distraught and anxious. And he turned to the Buddha and he said, "Have you seen my cows? I've lost my herd of cows. They've wandered off." And the Buddha said, "We haven't seen your cows. Maybe go look a different direction." And then he turned to his priest and with a smile said, "Be grateful you don't have any cows." So he was basically teaching we get so caught up in the things of life that they consume us, and that we could actually be grateful for not having cows. Whereas this other man who had cows was stressed and anxious. Now, in order to get to where we can be grateful, even in times of stress, we have to practice. I was watching a podcast the other day with Chris Williamson, and it's actually a little commercial he's giving about, this venison meat that he sponsors. And I could relate to the thing he said. He said, no one ever hits their protein goals by accident. I was talking about guys that are, in the gym training. You've got your protein goals. I've got mine. My trainer, my coach has me set to 165 grams of protein a day. I can attest, you don't get 165 grams of protein into your body by accident, right? You've got to make it an agenda, a practice. And again, the integrated man intentionally holds both realities simultaneously in his consciousness. Life is difficult, and he's also conscious of how abundantly blessed that he is. He's grateful and thankful, even and especially in difficult times. Now, when I was going through that difficult time 22 years ago after my divorce, or actually ramping up to a divorce, I wrote a series of lessons for a course called Nice Guys Don't Finish Last, They Rot in Middle Management. And I was wanting to write a lesson on gratitude and abundance. And it's the most difficult lesson I'd ever tried to write. And I realized I couldn't write about it because I wasn't living it. I didn't really live a life of abundant thinking, of thankfulness and gratitude. And it wasn't until I started that gratitude practice with my friend that everything opened up and I could write that lesson for that course on Nice Guys Don't Finish Last, that lesson on abundance. Here's a few of the principles I put in that lesson that I became aware of from my gratitude practice. One, opening up to abundance isn't a pursuit, it's a state of mind. Just like me camping, I had control over my state of mind. I could be in the moment and feeling grateful or caught up somewhere else. Another truth is that abundance isn't an issue of degree, it's an issue of awareness and acceptance. Another truth, abundance is not defined by how much a person has, but by how aware a person is of how much he or she has. Another truth, if you can't see that you are already abundantly blessed, you won't be able to see it if it's multiplied by 10, 100, or 1,000, even 1,000,000, right? You have to start right here, right now, with being able to be grateful for everything that you have in your life. Remember, gratitude, thankful, and abundance, all of these are practice. None of them just come to you. So here's my challenge to you guys. I challenge you to start a daily gratitude practice. Spend 5 minutes a day, first thing in the morning, last thing at night. I wake up every morning, the first thought I have, the first words in my head are, thank you, to no one in particular, right? Just thank you. I'm alive, I'm awake, I slept, I have another exciting day in front of me. I wake up with gratitude and thankfulness. So spend 5 minutes a day thinking about things you feel grateful for. I suggest keep an abundance journal. I do morning pages pretty much every morning. I can't say I do it 100%, but I do it pretty much every morning. It's from The Artist's Way. And just the other day when I was, like I said, out camping, and I thought, here I am stressing while camping. I wrote 3 pages of things for which I feel grateful. And that helped. It got my focus on just everything in my life for which I feel grateful. Then when you notice yourself feeling stressed or anxious, depressed, out of the moment, not here in the now, caught up in everything swirling through your head, then focus on those things you feel grateful for. Get out your journal, write some more in it, read the things you've written in the past that you're grateful for. Okay, a quote I like. One of my all-time favorite books is The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. He begins the book with this quote: "Life is difficult. This is a great truth, one of the greatest truths. It is a great truth because once we truly see this truth, we transcend it. Once we truly know that life is difficult, once we truly understand and accept it, then life is no longer difficult. Because once it is accepted, the fact that life is difficult no longer matters." See, that's integration, right? Life's difficult, but that's okay. I'm going through difficult times. That's all right. I'm challenged and I'm blessed. We can integrate all of those things together. Okay, I want to do something with you guys. We didn't do the kind of the normal practice or meditation that we typically have on a call, but I want to just do something with you, right? Think about these things we've been talking about. Now here, I want you to do something with me. First of all, kind of clear your mind of everything else. Think of a difficult time. Maybe it's a difficult time you're in right now. Maybe it's a money stress. Maybe it's a work or job stress. Maybe a relationship stress. Maybe a lack of a relationship stress. So worry. It's a somebody you care about is ill or sick or been in an accident. Maybe a relationship's recently ended. Maybe you have estrangement from somebody you love. Kind of really hone in on this. Could be a current difficult time or maybe a recent one, last few weeks, months, last few years. Kind of really hone in on that. And then kind of go into the emotional state of it, the emotional feeling of it. Kind of breathe that in. And now I want you to give a number to the severity of that. One being it was so severe, you didn't think you'd ever get through it. You didn't think it'd ever end. You didn't know how you're going to get out. It was the worst thing you can ever remember experiencing. So that's 1. 10 was, yeah, it's difficult, but I'm pretty optimistic. I got a plan. I know my way through. I know this will pass. Okay, give it a number. 1, 3, 5, 7. How challenging or difficult was that time? Now just kind of be with it again. Feel that number. Is it 1, so severe you didn't know how you're getting out? 3, you were pretty overwhelmed, depressed, lethargic, avoiding, procrastinating. 5, it was on your mind pretty much all the time, but you still kind of carried on with your day-to-day stuff. But, at 7, okay, you felt pretty optimistic. Maybe 8 or 9. Yeah, it was hard, but you knew you were going to get through it. Okay? Breathe that in. Now, with that in mind, we're going to take 2 or 3 minutes. And for the next 2 or 3 minutes, kind of put that aside, hold it over here, that difficult time. For 2 to 3 minutes, I want you to think of things for which you feel blessed, things for which you're grateful, things for which you are thankful. Just start kind of listing them, saying them in your mind, say them out loud if you want, write them down if you want, for just 2 to 3 minutes. I'm going to check my watch here. And just breathe in, and let's just do a little mini gratitude practice for the next couple minutes. Go ahead and close your eyes, write in a journal, but just be still and be grateful and think specifically. If you have a home, you're grateful for. If you're alive, you're grateful for that. If you're in good health, you're grateful. Friends and loved ones, a pet you're grateful for. Children you're grateful for. Anything in life, just look around you and just think of things you're grateful for. And I'll quit talking for just a couple minutes and let you soak in your gratitude. 1 more minute. Don't let your mind drift. Just keep thinking of things for which you're grateful. Past events, past gifts you've been given, expressions of love, vacations you've been on, happy events. Just kind of swim in your gratefulness and your gratitude and your thankfulness. Just be with it. Let it wash over you. Okay. Now here's integration. Let's go back after 2 to 3 minutes of just being grateful, thankful. Go back to that difficult event I asked you to visualize before. And now, as you think about that event, let's give it a number again. 1, it's the most overwhelming thing you could ever imagine and no way out. 8, 9, or 10, it was difficult and challenging, but you stayed optimistic and positive. Has that number changed any from the first time? Is it the same event, but now as you think about it and feel it, has that number gone up at all because you spent 2 to 3 minutes being grateful, sitting with abundance, being thankful? Just notice in general how you feel right now as opposed to how you felt before we did the gratitude practice. That's integration. Life can be challenging and difficult, and we can be grateful for the blessings that rain down on us. They can go hand in hand. They can go together. Q&A time. Because I'm on my little laptop in a Starbucks, Sid's going to post a timer. So we're going to start, let's do 3 minutes each to start with questions. Good question. And probably you're not alone. We all live in this body, this material world, and typically we live in a state of deprivation. Is there enough? Is there enough that I can survive, basically, that I can live? Enough to eat, enough money to pay my bills, enough love, enough to go around. We see maybe people that have a lot of everything, big homes, multiple homes, expensive cars, expensive trips. And it's easy to look around and go, well, everybody has more stuff than me. They must be happier than me. Because we think that our ability to be happy in life is based on stuff and the ability to get stuff and how much stuff we can accumulate. But kind of like that story about Buddha when he said, be thankful you don't have cows, because the accumulation of stuff leads to the loss of stuff. It leads to the attachment to that stuff. Oh no, this stuff may go away. So it's just normal. It's normal for us to be this way of thinking, I'll be happy when there's enough stuff, right? I love that whole George Carlin routine, just talking about our shit, how much shit we just store up and how the shit has to be taken care of and maintained, and it owns us rather than us owning it. So that's why doing a gratitude practice, when you can be thankful for a sunny day, be grateful for a rainy day, be grateful that, you've had enough to eat today. Be grateful that you had a good night's sleep. Be grateful that somebody smiled at you. Be grateful that you can walk. Those are the things when you build a sense of gratitude for what you do have, not what you don't have. That builds a sense of abundance. And then all of a sudden, the stuff begins to have less and less significance. Because again, like I said, if you cannot be grateful and have a sense of abundance for what you have right now in this moment, I can multiply that by 10, 100, 1,000, and 1,000,000, and you still would not see it because it's a state of mind, not a state of stuff. Learning to be happy in this moment with exactly what you have, letting go of the attachments, letting go of the desire that leads to suffering. Now, again, it's a practice to do all of that. Then life just feels like a continual flow of goodies. Even during difficult times, even during painful times, you can still be grateful for what flows because it's a state of mind. And then you can have lots of stuff and be happy. You can have just a few things and be happy. The stuff is not the determining factor. It's the gratitude you have for what you have. It's a good question. There's not a right way. There's really not. Some people say we need to do it this way, need to do it that way, need to spin plates, need to have multiple, women. There's no right way. Just a couple observations. You mentioned that you got put in the friend zone. And one thing I've been saying for a long time now is that women don't put a man in the friend zone because we get too attached, or we don't take risk, or we're not too, we're afraid to be vulnerable, or we're afraid to set the
Right.
tone and lead. Or so when we do get one woman, it's easy to get attached that I want that one to work. I want to hang on to that one. I don't want to lose that one. And so we don't want to do anything to disrupt that. And that's why I think dating multiple women, at least early on, can be helpful. Number one, to help you kind of avoid that trap of thinking, I better just focus on that one. Because that, again, is probably what will end to the relationship not working out. I mean, other things can contribute to it not working out, and usually they will. In most relationships, are going to end. The majority, they're going to end. But early on, whatever attachment we have to not wanting this one to end and not wanting to do anything to mess it up and not wanting to feel uncomfortable, probably those are going to be the things that lead to it ending, if that makes sense. So that I think there is value. I'm not saying you should or you have to, but there's value in going slow with getting exclusive with one woman. Go slow with it, especially if your mind's thinking, I'm going to blow it, or I better get in, or I better not, and especially if you're uncomfortable with it, or you think she's uncomfortable with it. Those, for me, whenever I noticed that discomfort, I thought, I'm going to lean into that discomfort. And so for me, dating multiple women at a time early on, or even letting the woman know I wasn't exclusive, even if I wasn't dating anybody else, right? I wouldn't necessarily tell her that. I say, you just need to assume that I am. That helped me stay a little bit more independent, so to speak, and to just give me time to kind of, like I always say, the purpose of dating is to find out what's the woman's nature and how does she fit into your great life. And to do that, you have to go slow as possible to find out as quickly as possible what her nature is. So dating other women can kind of slow things down rather than you going fast because, hey, I'm not in the friend zone. I better hang on to this one. Everybody's wired differently. Okay. I know some people, anything that's happened bad in their life, they carry it with them and they ruminate about it for years, right? And just can't let it go. That's one extreme. I'm maybe a little bit like you in that I don't pack a lot of stuff with me from my past. Um, I have kind of a short memory about a lot of things in life, really. I always have. And so even bad relationships, people that have hurt me, people have let me down, I don't tend to pack that with me when probably I should say, no, that's not acceptable. If that happens again, I'm gone. So I think there's, we can be at two extremes. One is that we pack everything with us and can't let it go, or we don't take anything with us that maybe does need some responses. So I don't, again, I can't really say where you're at, if that's good, bad, right, or wrong. Do you sweep things under the rug? Probably you need to ask the people closest to you that have known you the longest, family, good friends, say, what do you think? Do I have a tendency to sweep things under the rug or tolerate too much or, not deal with things that maybe I should deal with? Ask people that have known you for a while and see what they have to say. And if they all tend to say, oh, yeah, you seem like you don't care, it doesn't bother you, but it does seem to bother you, right? Maybe they see what you can't. Again, I can't really answer that for you without knowing you well enough to know your tendencies. But again, it could just be part of your natural temperament. Part of my natural temperament is I don't pack a lot with me. I don't hold grudges. I don't hold resentments. I tend to just kind of, they slide from memory and I move on. So maybe you're similar in that way. When I talk with people, for example, about letting go of attachment to outcome, a lot of people say, why would I even get out of a bed if I don't have attachment to outcome? Why would I pursue something better? Why would I go talk to a pretty woman if I didn't have attachment to outcome? The truth is, I mean, and that's our thinking. That's why we keep staying stuck in those attachments to outcome. Buddha and many others have taught that desire is suffering, wanting is suffering. And we can argue with that and go, well, but I do want. Okay, we can want. It's a human nature to want and to desire and to get attached. That's why we all suffer. But we think if we didn't, we wouldn't better our life in any way. But the truth that I've found anyway, both personally and working with a lot of people over the times, the less attached you are to specific things, more, I call it outcome agnostic. equally okay with any possible outcome. Now, again, that's a practice. That's not easy to get to. I'm not there. But the more you can get okay with whatever the is coming your way, the more you can say yes to it, the more you can say yes to things that in your wildest imagination, you couldn't dream of them coming into your life. Because I promise you, however you envision, oh, if I just had this, I'll be happy. If I just go for this, then I'll be happy. There is so much more out there that can come to you if you're open and not focused on this thing. If I get that, I'll be happy. But this thing over here that's just waiting to come to our life might be the thing that truly blesses our life beyond our imagination. So, believe it or not, the people I know who are actually less attached to outcome often live more adventurous lives, fuller lives, more abundant lives. They take more risks. They say yes to more things because they're not attached to that. I've got to keep saying, I got to keep going this direction. And again, it's part of the human condition. And it does take practice to notice where we're suffering because that's what we're attached to. That's where our desire is. Again, desire is not bad, but it will cause us to suffer. It always will. So if we can just notice that, we can go, all right, why am I suffering? Well, I'm attached to wanting this. And if we're attached to wanting this, where are my blinders keeping me oblivious to all this out here that's wanting to flow to me?